What does your personal emotional fitness program look like?
Mm. So I understand emotional intelligence. Like, I think I read Dale Carnegie when I was in like eighth grade, and I love how to win friends and influence people, and connect with people on their level, and care for other people emotionally. And it truly isn't until recently that I realized like I need to actively do maintenance on my own emotional situation. So it's funny how you think you understand emotional intelligence, and then you like realize how much you don't when you actually like are pulling from that like resiliency bank, and you're like, oh God, I need something in the bank right now.
What's going on?
Oh man, it's great to see you.
Yeah, you too. How are you?
I'm great. I've been a little slammed lately.
You probably have one or two things on your plate as the CEO.
Oh gosh, yeah. The
And
five kids more likely.
right. Yeah, and I was about to say, and also being a mother of a lot of kids, a wife, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Things are good though. Yeah, it's all good stuff. It just whether it's good though, it still takes energy.
Yes, yes. I just had a coaching appointment right before this, and he's a senior executive, and he's an introvert. So INTP, maybe something like, I don't remember exactly his Myers Briggs, but an introvert.
Mm.
And energy for introverts is very, very important to be able to manage that. And his company is they grew 300% over COVID
Oh
during,
wow.
and so it slowed down to like 30 to 40% growth, right?
Wow, that's a lot.
And so and he's like, I'm like, so how are you doing? He's like, great, but it's more rocks and bigger rocks, but I'm doing great. And I said, okay, well, how are you doing taking care of yourself, bro? He's like,
Yeah.
well, that's, that'll come along. I'm like, no, 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 no. Like you got
Yeah.
to take care of yourself, right? As a, CEO and mom and wife and all the stuff the hats you're wearing, like it's a tough balance.
Oh, absolutely. Yep, yep, yep. So, I'm an introvert too. I'm kind of a loud introvert, but I'm an introvert too.
Yes, that's why I said that. Yeah.
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 Oh, you're an EQ guy.
That's right. That's right. So, EQ Gangsters, I am here with a super duper lady named Brittany Chiang, and she is a wife, a super mom of 5 kids, and the CEO, and also owner of a large government contracting company that does provide some amazing services to a lot of different military organizations. And I've been blessed to have connected with her company, Flatter, back in October, and with her father, who is also equally amazing sauce, and have just already been blessed by her family the past, what are we on, 6 9 months or so. And she's got just what I've mentioned there, tons of responsibility, a lot of things that she's doing, a lot of things that she's involved in. And Brittany, just super excited. Thank you so much for your time, for investing here and adding value to the audience. Uh, and I'm really excited to share your story and your wisdom and your insights with us. So please, without further ado, tell us about yourself.
Well, thank you for that introduction, Noble. And it definitely seems like we've known each other longer. You're an awesome energy. Love to have you around. I'm so excited about this dialogue. So yeah, my name is Brittany Chiang. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Flatter Incorporated. Our company was founded in 2002 by my father. And I was always very, very intrigued with the business world and, this company that he was building. And I had also been raised while he was an active duty Marine. So always, raised in the DoD culture and living on military bases, kind of flip flopping from California to Quantico and back and forth between 29 Palms, Camp Pendleton, Naval Postgraduate School. So we kind of did this hop across the country every couple of years. So yeah, when I went off to college and I actually went to the same college as my husband, which was another blessing for later, but I knew that I wanted to study something that would prepare me for this role of joining my dad in his company and kind of, climbing the ladder and learning everything I possibly could about the company. And so fast forward 20 years later, after 2002, we've been in business together, running a family centered company. My husband is the chief operating officer, and he's also a service disabled veteran. So he has some ownership in the company, as well as my father, my mother, my two younger siblings work with us. And so every day is an adventure.
So, so that is amazing on a number of different levels. So, number one, the fact that you guys have been in business for 2 decades and have been a part of probably 10 different startups, and so to last that long again is a feat in and of itself, and then and then even you're saying being a my wife is a PK preacher's kid, actually an MK missionary kid and kind of preacher's kid, but a military kid is a whole nother ball game, right? Also, there's a whole nother dynamic about that, and then
Marine kid has its own dynamic as well.
yeah, an MK, right? Marine kid. That's right. That's true. That's right. And then to run a large company and literally be a family business, man, that's a lot of massive accomplishments and milestones and things that you guys have had to work through. So talking about EQ, this is very relevant
Absolutely, yeah.
in running and being a part of a family business, because I think I've had a number of people. My wife and I work together, and most of our businesses we've worked together on. And I've had a number of people say, dude, you guys are unicorns, right? There are not many families that can do business together and do family together. It's either like
Mm-hmm.
pick it, like
Mm.
either you do business together or you do family together, but many people are not able to do that. So how has that experience been?
Yeah, I mean, the familial aspect of it hugely complicates things. But what isn't life is complicated, relationships are complicated, so it just kind of adds more to the web. But conversely, it has really promoted this familial culture that we try to promote within the organization. And it kind of trickles down, through the headquarters and throughout the employees. My mom sends birthday cards to all the kids under 18 on their birthdays. We send wedding anniversary cards, birthday cards for spouses. So all those little things that we do to kind of cultivate an atmosphere in our family, we try to kind of bring to our company as well.
What has been the most challenging thing emotionally
Hmm.
being in a family business and being the CEO?
Hmm. Yeah. Gosh, I would say, the blurred lines between the familial expectations and then the organizational expectations. So we set, corporate sales goals and targets and everything we're trying to accomplish on the business side, but we also have personal goals. I know my parents want to retire someday and they want a certain lifestyle when they retire. And I know, my little sister is going to want to send her son to college. And so all of those goals for me, I sometimes feel like I personally am the steward of all of those things and not just my job at my company. I'm working for my father, I'm working for my sister, I'm working for my employee and his and her family. And so that's probably the most challenging thing is the the emotional connections and relationships that are pretty complicated.
Excellent point. I work with a lot of leaders. So yeah, that's almost exclusively who I work with are leaders. And a lot of the folks that listen to the podcast, watch our YouTube are leaders. How do you, as a leader, handle the emotional consequences of the responsibility that you just described?
It's when you're younger, I still consider myself young, but when you're young, you just kind of you start like building up all your activities and all the things you're going to be responsible for, and it's kind of slowly growing. And then you're a MK, a Marine kid, so you've got the suck it up mentality of like, add it to the list, like figure out a way to do it and do it. But you actually, find a point where you're like, oh gosh, that last thing that I just added kind of put me over the edge a little bit. Like, I can't just continue to say yes to everything and to grow the responsibilities and to grow what we do. So when I joined and we were under 30 employees, one of the things I always did is I knew every employee's name and I knew what program they were working on and a little bit about their families. And that was totally manageable at 30 employees. Now we're at over 200, including W-2s and consultants, and I don't know everyone's name. And on one hand, I really regret that. But on the other hand, I have to be realistic about what I personally can accomplish and then build the systems that continue to cultivate that same level of engagement where it's not Brittany that's engaging with them, but it's someone else, but they still have that same cultural experience and I don't have to be the one delivering it.
Love that. So so I got from that is systems, managing expectations, and culture, uh, which are all awesome. How do you, one of the things that we had kind of talked about before we started kind of recording is boundaries.
Mm.
How do you maintain and establish personal and professional boundaries as a senior leader, as the senior leader in a large growing company?
Yeah. I'm absolutely not there yet. The boundary, we're over the boundaries, right? We're trespassing. But I am being intentional about kind of reining it in. Probably up until like last year, I feel like I hadn't reached my limit yet, and I can do more. I can keep adding more. And now I feel like I have kind of overextended myself a little bit, and so I'm intentionally kind of reining it back in. So I won't say I figured that one out yet. I'm still working on figuring that one out. But, I think the one immediate thing that has really helped me is maybe I don't have the boundary yet, but I have the resource of how to figure out how to get to the right place. So, I have my husband, I have a coach, I have an executive coach, I have friends in my industry, I have friends in my church. And so I go around all day asking for resources, advice, like, hey, this is what I'm going through. What do you think about this? And after the fifth person coming back and telling me, you need boundaries, you need to say no, like I finally am internalizing it.
That's awesome. And as I had mentioned, one of the coaching appointment that I had right before you, same scenario, same conversation, senior executive, not the CEO, but I will also be having this same conversation with the CEO. And it's very easy. And I think I don't know if it's our Western culture. I've heard that from a lot of my friends that are not from the U.S., not Americans, but other countries. We went to Spain. I've got some friends in Spain. I got some friends that are Italian, and both of those countries, like siestas and social time are massive, and family time are massive parts of their culture.
Mhm.
Whereas in the US, I think for a lot of high achievers, high performers, people say family is important, they, and I think they believe that. I think that family is important to them. But if one of the things I like to recommend to people is that doing a time budget. When they do a time budget, the vast majority of time is work related,
Mm-hmm.
and a small percentage is family.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're a little bit incongruent with what they say is important versus what their actions are showing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I think it's really great self-awareness that you're kind of having right now as a CEO, a young CEO of a big company. Like, okay, well, I'm not there yet, and that's an
Mm-hmm.
area that I still need to kind of hone and refine and dial in. um, because the dynamic with this particular other CEO is, because what can happen is, a lot of times what I have found is more is caught than taught.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I'm an employee in your company and I'm seeing you juggling 85
Mm-hmm.
balls, well, crap, the boss says that family's important and we have a family culture, but she's juggling 85 balls. Maybe I need to do the same thing and juggle 85 balls, right? And so,
Right.
so how have you been intentional? And you've mentioned one or two things which I love. How else have you been intentional at maintaining a familial culture in spite of the growth you're having?
Right. Yeah. So I've really tried to put our headquarters through, the boot camp and walk the walk. So they are kind of internalizing some of these habits that we have. Um, for example, my father was the owner of the company and I had my first child. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to bring him to work with me. And because JR was the owner, like he supported me and allowed me to do that. And I know that's something that a lot of people don't have the privilege to do. And so the next two employees at our company who had babies brought their babies to work with them for the first 4 to 6 months of their lives. So that was an amazing experience to like literally rock the child of your employee at the office. And so, I mean, of course, like that makes us kind of feel like a family when our proposal manager has like, helped care for the infant of our training coordinator. And so that culture has been really neat to see. And I'd love to be able to multiply that like into government work environments. I'm not quite there yet, but just little things like, even though I don't know the birthday of every employee at our company, I know my teams and I celebrate those, and my program managers do the same with their teams, and they have a budget to take their teams out to lunch if that's what they want to do for a birthday. So just kind of, trying to trickle that down into the program manager, supervisor, task lead, like every level.
Love it. Those are some great practical tools and systems that you have done. It very much sounds like, a couple. Well, let's see, two of the companies that I have heard about that have really, I feel like, done a great job with culture. And again, this is completely, what do you call it, off the top of the bean, because I haven't done the research on this or not, so I can't back this up with academic research or anything like that. But Google and Facebook, I've heard that they have just created these amazing environments where they've got the it's kind of a relaxed culture, because one of the, and this is research, right, the happier an employee is, the more engaged they are, and the more productive they are, and the more outcomes and throughput happens when there's a happy employee. And sometimes when you create this, and again, in a lot of American companies and maybe other companies, but from my perspective, that harder is always better, right?
Mm-hmm.
Longer hours is always better.
Mm-hmm.
Is it? Is it right? Is harder always better, or is happier better? Right? A longer working employee that works 12 hours a day versus 8 hours a day, but they're happier, more engaged, more relaxed, less stress and anxiety, in my opinion, will create much better output and outcomes than a super stressful, hardcore, do more, KPIs, metrics, right?
Right.
And so it's awesome that you're able to, you're being so intentional at keeping and maintaining this familial culture,
Mhm.
which I think is going to be something that's going to be hard for you as you guys continue to grow and scale, right? To make that a priority is awesome. Okay, what if I can just ask a? Do you mind if I ask a direct question?
Sure.
What does your personal emotional fitness program look like?
Mm. So I understand emotional intelligence. Like, I think I read Dale Carnegie when I was in like eighth grade, and I love how to win friends and influence people, and connect with people on their level, and care for other people emotionally. And it truly isn't until recently that I realized like I need to actively do maintenance on my own emotional situation. So it's funny how you think you understand emotional intelligence, and then you like realize how much you don't when you actually like are pulling from that like resiliency bank, and you're like, oh God, I need something in the bank right now. So it's a learning experience. Again, I'm not going to say like I have my arms around this one and I know what to do, because I absolutely don't. And every season is different. It's like um, this month there was a death in the family. Last month we had kids enroll in multiple sports and we're across the county in different locations all at once. Or you don't know what's around the corner. And so I know it's important that you're putting in that resiliency in yourself, so that when those things happen, you're prepared for them and you can take a couple of hits. But yeah, I'm still figuring it out.
No, that's great. Again, I appreciate the candor. That's awesome. And of course, this is the space I've been in for 4 years. Ask me anything about emotions 4 years prior, I would have thought you're talking Chinese to me, right? I don't even. I told the counselor, you know, he said, "Hey, dude, let me introduce you to two, revolutionary new concepts for you, Noble, called feelings and emotions." And I was like, "What? What? What are you talking about, bro? Like, I have no like, is this Harry Potter voodoo stuff or like what is this?" So yeah, no, and that's another great point that you made. A lot of executives that I found have the intellectual understanding of emotional intelligence.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, I've taken an hour long presentation on EQ, or I've heard a podcast on it, or whatever, read a book on it. But the number of executives that have an emotional fitness program is very, very, very small
Mhm.
percentage, and not just executives, but just leader people. Period. A very small percentage have an emotional fitness program, but I think it's as important as physical fitness, as our spiritual
Mhm.
fitness. And we wonder, oh, but I work out once a year. Why can't I bench press this? Whatever. Well, dude, you work out once a year. Why do you think your emotional muscles are going to be? But when you establish a consistent emotional fitness program, now you can handle, oh, I've got kids sports activities all over the state, or I've got a death
Mhm.
in the family, or when you're then what I have found is I've gotten healthier emotionally and become more emotionally fit. Now my emotional agility has increased, my
Mhm.
leadership agility has increased, my resilience has increased, my emotional bandwidth has increased, my emotional capacity has increased. So a lot of neat benefits from, but again, I'm still new in it as well. I'm just 4 years into it myself. But anyway, so that's great. I appreciate your transparency. That's good. So what? Okay, this is great. This is great. What are some ways that you recharge? We talked about before we
Mhm.
started. You're an introvert. As kind of an introverted person, what are some ways that you feel recharged?
I'm huge on sleep. So that's actually one boundary that I've guarded, well, ever since I can remember. I sleep for like 7 to 8 hours a night, every single night. And it's something I just will not compromise on. I'll turn in my homework assignment. I'm in a master's program right now. I'll turn in my assignment late before I lose sleep. So I just, without that, like there'd be a breaking point. So, I mean, that's one, my number one. And then I do, exercise, I'm not great about. I do try to exercise. I'm really inconsistent about that. Dinner with the family is another thing that we do consistently. I mean, there's very rarely we don't eat together, and it's, because the kid's at a friend's house or something like that. But the teenager has to come out of her hole and come upstairs and see the light of day, and all the kids have to come out of their rooms, and including us, no eating at your desk. So those are two things that I've done, really well, that do recharge me, and that I'm consistent about.
That's great. That's great. And there are, so let's see, was it this year, last year? Last year, I guess it was last year. I started off probably the first 6 months of last year. I had a counselor from the VA vet, the VA hospital, and for a good 6 or 7 months or so. And I had a terrible sleep schedule, terrible, terrible. And I had all these other issues going on. And she's like, dude, are you sleeping good? And I'm like, no, I terrible sleeper.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, well, she rattled off about 15 different consequences of poor sleep habits and stuff. And I'm like, man, crap, I think I've covered about 10 of those at least. Right. She's like, well, it's because if you're if you're always operating at a deficit, and
Mm-hmm.
you do that over time, dude, there's consequences, right? And so that's awesome that's a non-negotiable for you, as a wife, as a mother, as a CEO. That's great boundary. If you're going to have one, that's a great one to have. For sure.
It sounds kind of sad that the thing I do to bring me joy is sleep.
Listen, Brittany, the older I get, no, it does not sound like I am. Yes, because
Uh,
I know for me, like Brittany, like when I was a young guy, when I was in my 20s, oh, I'd go 2 or 3 days with no sleep, running my businesses that, we'd have businesses and startup businesses, startup
mhm,
businesses, man, it's no sleep till
mhm.
Brooklyn, and I could be fine. At day 3 of no sleep is when my speech would start to slur. So I'm like, okay, I need to sleep a little bit. Nowadays, I can't, no joke, if I get 2 or 3 hours of sleep a night, I'm gonna be wrecked the next day.
Yeah.
And it's probably gonna take me 3 to 4 days
Mm.
before I'm back in my routine, and I feel like I'm back to being 100%. So the consequences for me of operating at a deficit are much greater now than they ever.
Mhm.
So I think that's great, Brittany. I think that's awesome. I love it. Um, so let me ask you about coaching. So that's one of the businesses, one of the umbrellas under Flatter is Two Roads Leadership, right?
Mhm.
So Two Roads Leadership is one of the kind of sub companies, I guess, under Flatter, if I'm saying that
Yeah,
right.
it's a division. Yep.
Okay, division where you guys do coaching and you certify coaches and all that kind of thing. What are some qualities and characteristics that make great coaches?
Hmm. That's a really good question. So my non-answer of an answer is that I think everyone has the ability to coach, and that it's a really neat practice to incorporate just in your leadership role, mother, father, staff, you know, supervisor, non-supervisor, whatever. Like, I think you can coach people and learn some of those foundational things that would make you like helpful. But I think the really great coaches, they're different, right? Like, if you really have a knack for coaching, there are certain habits that you have mastered. Probably the most difficult one that not everyone has, or is really difficult, is the ability to reserve judgment. And, not that you don't express judgment, but you really truly are not judging the person sitting in front of you. I think that's very, very difficult, and probably not a lot, not most coaches probably don't do that.
That's excellent. Love that. That's great. That's definitely something that I've had to work on for sure. And probably I probably still fall into that sometimes. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I probably fall into like, oh, where I've got a bias, and so I feel like a need to express my bias. Well, why? Yeah, that's great. That's
Mm-hmm.
great. Another one that I'll just throw out at you and want to see how this hits you. For excellent coaches, I would say ask great questions. And it seems like, well, and for me, that is also a skill that can be developed, but I'm just not sure how many coaches are intentional at developing that
Mm-hmm.
aspect of their coaching game. But for me, it's a cheesy quote, and I love cheesy quotes. The quality of the answer is
Mm-hmm.
determined by the quality of the question.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What 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 have been some questions that you have been asked that have really made you stop, pause, and reflect?
Hmm. I don't know. I can't, it's that question that you're asked where in that moment, it causes self-reflection. And I really can't think of one, but yeah, it's those questions where you have to sit and think about the answer. I think those are the ones that I value the most and that are the most meaningful.
Yeah, yeah. I did a post, Instagram post recently. Well, I say recently. I don't know. I'm not super big on Instagram, but within a month or two, on have you ever been asked a question that's changed your life?
Hmm.
And if so, what was that question? Because I love questions that cause reflection and cause
Hmm.
growth and transformation. And I collect questions, so that's one of my.
I'll pass them to you if I think of
Yeah, please, that would be amazing. That would be awesome. Are there any? Let's see. So what questions do you ask yourself on a regular
them.
basis?
What are my priorities? What are my goals? Like, who am I serving? I like to do coaching on Monday morning. Like, I like to get coached on Monday mornings. And it helps me plan my week and prioritize my week and delete things off the calendar, move things off the calendar, add things to the calendar. So, Monday morning, I'm talking to the coach, I'm looking at what I'm planning to spend time on and asking those questions of why am I doing this? Is this what I need to be doing? Is this what my company requires of me? Is this what I need? So I kind of I'm probably a weirdo, but I handle my coaching like a taskmaster. Like, what am I doing today? I always have something specific to talk about. I'm always, rehearsing a crucial conversation, getting in the right frame of mind to have a discussion with someone. Those are kind of like the milestones of my week that I'm like planning for.
That's great. That's great. That's great. And so this question kind of ties into that last question. What impact has coaching has receiving coaching had on your life?
Well, it's maybe also a little sad, but the coaching is like one of those few hours in your week, day, month, whatever, where you're only focusing on yourself. And that was kind of novel to me in a way. Um, so much focus on the work, so much focus on what's next, on the family, on everything. So I think it's really refreshing to spend an hour on yourself, and it benefits all those other things exponentially. So I really, session one, got value out of my first coaching session, and I just found it hugely valuable. I was very surprised at how much value I thought that hour was worth.
How important is coaching to you now?
I mean, very, very important. I'm a little bit of a procrastinator also sometimes. So, that even that hour of planning, I'm not very good at like dedicating time to planning because it almost feels like a waste of time because you just want to get started and I'm a type A, I want to get going. But I think that's what's really neat about, spending some time to reflect and plan, and how much more you can do if you do that. Yeah. And then coaching, I really enjoy coaching as well, and have kind of like integrated it into dialogues we have, and brainstorming sessions. And I really like it as a non-coaching hour, just like in little bits, or even just one or two questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, again, the impact, consequence, ripple effect of one question. I mean, you can spend 3 months on chewing on one question, or you know what I mean. So that's no, that's awesome. That's great. Okay, let's just kind of wrap up here. I don't want to keep you longer than you have time for. Just last question here. What advice would you give to a leader that is wanting to maximize their leadership?
So I think one of the ways to, I mean, I'm sure there's EQ assessments and things like that, but I think one of the most effective ways at figuring out where your blind spots are as a leader is to do like a 360 assessment, and to reflect yourself, have your peers reflect, have your subordinates and supervisors. There are just some truths that you have to hear from other people, and you have to be confronted with some truth. So however you get that, it doesn't have to be some tool. It could just be asking people to be honest with you about, hey, how am I really doing? How do people receive what I think I'm giving leadership wise? And I think that's really needed.
That's great. I think a lot of people are scared of those 360 assessments because of what they may they may get back. Especially
Yeah.
when their self-awareness isn't high, right? You really have no idea what's going to come back at you, or maybe you have a higher expectation than what may be coming back. So,
Right.
but no,
And
I love
I'm
that.
fully aware of the fact that I don't get honest feedback. I probably get honesty from my husband, but I run into characters all the time where someone will say, "Man, that guy is so rude to me," and I'm like, "Really? He's always so nice to me." So I definitely get that like boss version of people, and I have to. You really truly value objective feedback when it's hard to come by.
Yes, yes, that's a great point. That's actually how I got my start in coaching. Was I was one of my friends was a CEO, and I was asking him all these questions. Well, why are you doing that? Well, that doesn't make any sense. Why did you do that? And he's like, dude, I want you to start coaching me because nobody has the stones to ask me these questions. I'm like, oh, okay. But that's funny that you said that. It's so true.
I guess
Okay,
that's another reason we need coaches.
that's right. That's right. How do we follow your company, your organization? What's your organization's website, your company's website?
Thanks, I appreciate that. So our website is www.flatterinc.com. And I love to connect on LinkedIn. So if you're listening to this, go ahead and connect with me. It's slash BE Chang, CHIANG, like my name here. So I'd be happy to connect with everyone. We do business with the federal government and commercial customers. So if we can ever collaborate and work together, I would love to.
That's awesome. And as you guys are growing, what type of employees? I'm sure you're probably even looking for potential employees to fill different openings and stuff. Is that the case?
Yeah, definitely. We're always looking for people who are expert project managers, training development coordinators, writers. So I think we have 4 or 5 open positions on our website right now, but we are absolutely always looking for talent.
Awesome. And they can just go to Flatter Inc. to find
That's
those
right.
openings.
Yeah.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Okay, great. Brittany, thank you so much. You rock like ZZ Top. Please give your pops a big hug for me. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you for your time today.
I will. And thank you, Noble, for what you do. I love what you bring awareness to.